Hey, Tom, thanks for taking a little time out to chat today. And first, I wanted to just talk about the show. Like so many, veteran bands, you have such a long catalog. So, how do you pick the set list? And, there are certain things you have to do, certain things you pull in occasionally. What are you planning?
That's a pretty good description right there.
Well, in your own words, please.
Yeah, okay. Actually, we do play the chestnuts pretty much because people always want to hear them. We get together once every couple of years, change the setup because we do have a heck of a lot of songs to choose from when we go into deep cuts in albums. And we dust them off and sometimes rearrange them a little bit and then throw them in the set so it's a change up for not only the audience but for us as well to play something different. It's kind of fun. And we also have the new album that we dip into, and when I say new, it came out in 2010, so our newest album. And we use some of the songs off that as well. And try to keep the change up going so it's interesting for us and a challenge, and then also the people who see us on a fairly regular basis, at least once a year at any rate, have something new when they show up to the show.
And do you know of any of the, you mentioned some of the deeper cuts, anything, I could mention that maybe you might be pulling out this time that people might, look forward to, like a long-time fan?
Yeah, we've done a rearrangement on Eyes of Silver. It's the song, basically the different part is there's a 36-bar solo by Mark Russo in the middle, and it's pretty funky, which I enjoy. I like that kind of stuff. And we just let him cut loose for about 8 bars with nobody playing except the drums, and then everybody kind of falls in one at a time, so to speak, and starts building it up, and then pretty soon we reach a pinnacle, drop out, and go back to the song, and it works really well. And that came off what we're one Spices are now have. There's also Pat doing an acoustic thing. He's actually been doing it for a couple of years, but and that's goes over well. It's one of the deeper cuts. It's called either Steamer Lane Breakdown or Breakdown Around the County Corners. I can't remember which. And he couples that with South City Midnight Lady. We put in Road Angel, which has gotten a lot of really good responses, on Facebook and stuff. People commented they're going to get a kick out of hearing that song again. We haven't played it for a long time. And that's going over well. And then we've got a couple of songs off the new album in there, like World Gone Crazy, which is the title track. And there's also the Chestnuts that if we didn't play them, we'd hear about it. People would get a little upset.
Right.
Maybe upset.
And how do you handle the some of the Michael McDonald ones? Obviously he's not in the touring lineup right now, so you had to rearrange.
Well, from that era, we do take it to the streets and have been for actually years now. There's one other song from that era, and that's one that Pat wrote, and that's Dependent on You. We're doing that live as well. I forgot to mention that. So that's another one that's maybe people haven't heard. We've been doing it for about a year and a half now, one of the ones that I mentioned. We got together in Dallas and rehearsed for a week. And actually worked up a lot more songs than we put in the set, so we've got some other ones kicking around in the wings. Should we decide to use them, we'd have to dust them off again, but at least we got worked up.
And you mentioned the most recent album, so how was that to make some new music, and was that a fun thing to kind of get back in the studio and have something different to put into the shows too?
At this point, we're working on an album that's going to be out, I guess, in March. They upped the release date on it. It's not a regular album in that it's not all brand new songs. It's basically us doing a collaborative album with country artists. People like Blake Shelton and Toby Keith and Zach Brown and are all, and some other, and quite a few others who are, I'm not coming up with at the moment. That's just due to my failing memory. At any rate, It's really sounding good. Oh, Kid Rock is one of the other ones that's going to be on it. And the tracks are amazing. I mean, working with these guys in Nashville, they're phenomenal. The studio guys. Just they go in there and bing, bang, boom, they knock it out, and it sounds great. And it's kind of a different way to cut, too, because you're cutting with 3 guitars, bass, drums, keyboards, all at once, and pedal steel all at once. So essentially, the track is, for all intents and purposes, pretty much done, except for the vocals and perhaps the solo guitar. That's about it. So it moves along real fast. But everything we've done so far sounds really good.
Mm.
So I don't know that we won't be playing any of those, at least those versions of them at the end of the month. And that's something that we'll have to ascertain how we're going to figure, how we're going to do that, because some of these songs we play live every night anyway, and the only difference being that you're doing it with and somebody else singing on it along with you, and like they take a verse, you take a verse, that kind of thing.
And you're pleased with the way that with the 2010 album that was a good experience for you?
I was very pleased with that album. Everybody in the band was. I mean, we were all very excited about that album. And unfortunately, it didn't do as well as we would have liked, but I don't think it got the exposure it should have gotten, actually, to be honest with you, which is tough these days. Times have changed drastically, and getting new music out and getting exposed, there's a lot of different ways to do it, and of course, online presence is a huge one, and sales, for that matter, as far as digital sales go. But it got rave reviews, from the critics that heard it and stuff. They really enjoyed it, and we were very proud of that album. We basically did it at our own pace, and took about well over a year and a half, almost 2 years to do the album, and we paid for it ourselves. And then we went and found somebody to, back the thing, if you will. And we did it independently all the way around. So it wasn't on a major label, although Warner's was involved as far as distribution goes. But it was a fun album to do. I'd like to do it again. It's just a matter of taking the time off to write that many songs again. I'd written 8 for this one, and we've been working a lot, so it's just, finding the time to sit down and do that sort of thing.
And when will the country album, is there a date for that to come out?
I don't know the actual date. Now, I don't want to even try to pin it down. I've been told sometime in March now, which is about 2 months earlier than it was going to be. So I'm going to say
this year.
Definitely this year, yeah. Let's see, March or April, one or the other.
Right.
When it happens, I'm sure you'll hear something about it, because it's going to be on Sony, and they're pretty excited about it. They really get it out.
You mentioned earlier when you just about Facebook, I think, about getting feedback. Is that a place you go and check and see what people are saying to kind of give you some idea, like, how things are playing, or to get an idea of, when you're doing shows, what people are talking about? Or
it's a good place to go for referencing exactly what you're talking about, because it's generally your fan base is there, along with a few people that you picked up along the way, and they'll give you pretty speedy results as far as new stuff that's been added to the set. Yeah, you can find out very rapidly how it's going over, and that's a handy tool to have, actually.
And at this point, I guess it's you and Patrick, right? They're sort of carrying the torch for in terms of being with the band the longest. So with all the different changes in the lineup over the years, how do you sort of preserve the sound? Is there a certain thing you look for, you're listening for? How do you keep it going as far as the Doobie Brothers?
Well, there's also John McPhee, who's been with the band since '78. So there's actually a sense 3 of us. But Pat and I are, from the gate, the original. And essentially, it's pretty simple to recreate the original sounds when you've got really good players. We have some great side guys most of them have been with us a long time. Most of them at least 20 years. The most recent addition being one of the drummers when Mike Hossack passed away. We had to replace him. Before him, we lost another drummer named Keith Knudsen, and we had to replace him. So those are the most recent guys, and even, most recent one being Tony P on drums. Before him, it was when Keith passed away, we got Ed Toast. But other than that, everybody else has been with us for a while. We've got Guy Allison on keyboards, who's been with us since '96. We've got Mark Russo on sax, who's been with us since '97. Well, I forgot. And actually on bass, too, there's John Callan, who is a really good singer and bass player and, has his own thing going in his own right. He was with the Newgrass Revival, and he's also done some solo albums. He's got a phenomenal singing voice, and he's a really good bass player. So that's been an addition. That's actually been, now that I think about it, the most recent addition. I take that back, because Skylark had a stroke, and he had to bow out, our bass player.
Right.
Unfortunately, this is how it goes.
Yeah.
The way of the world.
So it's a matter of just finding the right players and they can adapt to the Doobie Brothers sound and
yeah, as long as you've got the harmonies and you've got the playing ability. I mean, everybody in the band plays very well, so that's imperative. And then being able to, I mentioned John Callan has an incredible singing voice. So he's great for harmonies, as well as he's got a couple of lead parts he does in songs like, say, Taken to the Streets. And you've got four guys singing. Well, actually, Guy does a little singing as well, so five if you want to look at it that way. But you've got Pat and myself, John McPhee, and John Callan up front singing. So we've got the harmonies all covered, always do. And then the guys who sang the original songs are all there. I mean, the only song that we do that wasn't sung by one of us is Taken to the Streets. Everything else is it was written and sung by either Pat or myself.
Right. Okay, and I also wanted to ask you about the documentary, I guess, that came out a couple of years ago. Was that something you were really, wanted to have your story told, or how did it come about to make that film about the band?
To be honest with you, that's not the first one we ever did. It has a lot of footage in it from the old days and stuff, and I guess to me, that's probably the most interesting part. The history of the band is basically something I kind of lived through, so I think it's aimed at the hardcore fan base. It's for people who want to have, in essence, a visual record and auditory record of how the band changed through the years and where it is now, that sort of thing. So there's clips from the old days, there's clips from the Michael McDonald era, and then there's clips from the newer stuff, say off the DVD we did from Wolf Trap, and which was really definitively shot with high def, and it was a really nice production. And I want to say there's a little bit in there from the most recent video type thing we did, which was for a Clear Channel deal we did back in New York, and that involves a lot of the stuff off the new album. I think that's in there. I've only looked at it a couple of times. At any rate, it's like I said, it's aimed at the your diehard fans, the people that really want to have that sort of thing. I don't think it's gotten enough airtime as far as exposure to be a wide-selling product.
Is there a more definitive, film about? You said there have been a couple. Is there one that's more, you like better, or?
Yeah, any of them are more definitive. In fact, that's probably the best one we've done. Actually, there was one done. It's been a while ago, about 15 years ago at least. I'm just guessing. I don't really know. I think the definitive video has yet to be done, if you want to know the truth. But then again, there has to be a market for it too, and there's so many groups out there. It's a tough thing to try and sell to people, unless, as I said, they're really diehard fans. If we were really going to go after this, at this point, it's not going to happen. But at some point in the future, if we were going to go after this, I would go after it with a high-def point of view on it and spend a lot more time on it than we did. Because really, essentially, most of this, the interviews were done, were new, and it was mostly myself, Pat, and Bruce was in there quite a bit too, who was our manager, and Mike is in there a little bit as well. But I think it would need to be done a little more in depth, and I'll take a lot more time doing it. So, whether that happens or not, I really couldn't say.